will it take to avoid another civil war in America? Could a viable third political party help accomplish that goal? What if America's greatest threat is not Democrats or Republicans, but the fact that 60% of Americans being polled are saying that they want another choice because they no longer feel represented by the Democrats or Republicans, the parties in power in our two-party system? Many people just give up. Others have tried to start viable third parties, but they've given up. They won't even run as independent candidates because they feel like they can't get funded, they won't get support. So that's a legitimate fear in this country. And it seems that political disagreement oftentimes is heading toward warfare and destruction, but it doesn't need to. Every election, when you listen to the news, the partisan news in the media, it's couched and labeled as the most important election in history. Many Americans are privately wondering if violence is inevitable. But hopefully, and we're praying that America doesn't need another civil war. What we need is another political party, another choice, an option, hope for political change and a political future. If we look back through history, which we like to do at Holy Sorta, because it teaches us, we can learn from it. The Constitution, which everybody likes to reference, it never mentions political parties. In fact, George Washington warned against these factions, as well as James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson warned about concentrated political power. You know, America, we were not established, our republic was not established with political parties. Instead, they were established later, and they've changed over time. We started with Federalists and Democrat Republicans. Can you believe that? Democratic Republicans used to be the same party. Then there were Whigs, then Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, the Green Party. In 2022, a new party was established called the Forward Party. Check out their website. It's pretty interesting. They're not left, they're not right, they say forward. And they look like they're asking folks to join them because they represent people over parties. So give them a look. Let me know what you think in the comments. And in 2025, trillionaire Elon Musk, after a disagreement with President Donald J. Trump, announced his intention to begin the America Party. Haven't seen a website yet. Let me know if you find information there. If we look at this from a reality faith perspective, political parties, they're tools. But when tools become identities, they become idols. The Bible warned us against worshiping these idols. Is this part of the reason America feels like it can be falling apart all around us? People are now voting against candidates. And we've got some important elections coming up in November. And voting is going to start through absentee ballots in some states as early as September. That's only a month away. And people are voting now against candidates instead of rather than for candidates. Fear is driving the way people vote. There are closed primaries in some states in which moderates are not participating. But these elections coming up are general elections. They're pretty important. There's a lot going on with some new candidates with some very different ideas that some don't seem to jive with American ideals. What will it take for a new political party to be viable? What will it take? Many people just feel like third parties will always fail because they don't have the money, they don't have the media supporting them, because the media is driven by economics, and the current social media landscape requires them to promote fear, and disagreement and conflict in order to get clicks, in order to get ad revenue, in order to stay employed and continue doing what they do. So be aware of that. But why do these third parties seem to always fail? And it takes fractioning and dissolution of a current political party, I think, to make way for a viable third party as well. That's one reason. If you look at what is called Duverger's law, this was a French political scientist who said that the American system, which was based on the French system, naturally creates two dominant parties just by the structure. And it creates a situation where any third party candidate becomes a spoiler for the two dominant candidates. So, what would it take to create this viable third party? It would require election reform. It would require that, which is how likely does that seem with two dominant parties in control? How is election reform going to happen? So that's one reason the third party candidate remains in that spoiler role. And that's a reason a lot of people just say, hey, it's not even worth my time to go vote because I don't agree with either one of these dominant political party backed candidates. So my vote doesn't count unless I just want to go and be a spoiler. It would require independent funding for this viable third party, not in the millions, but in the billions, probably the hundreds and hundreds of billions. And it would require a concerted overtime effort on the local level, beginning with things like the school board, city councils, county commissions, state legislatures. Then you move up to governor. Then you move up to congressperson, senator, eventually president. But it would take a long, concerted, focused effort on the local level with a party that has clear ideas that make sense to the broader population. Finally, it would take extraordinary leadership. We've got plenty of politicians in this country, but we don't have so many statesmen or stateswomen. A successful third party leader would need credibility, humility, incredible communication skills, financial independence, and bipartisan respect. That's a very rare combination, but it is not impossible. Those people exist or they can be developed. Now, could this viable third party actually prevent the next civil war? We hope so. We're praying for that. So, a functioning third party would create another peaceful option. It would act as a pressure valve, not a guarantee, but a release of the pressure that's continuing to build up. We want to avoid that blowing. People fight less when they believe they have hope and a political future. And that's what we need in this country. Now, I like to look at the biblical worldview and perspective of things on Holy Sorta. And I encourage you to look at Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1, which states, "A gentle answer turns away wrath." That means if we apply it to today's current cultural situation in this political environment, that politics don't have to become warfare and destruction. Although there is a war of words going on, and it's crazy to watch sometimes. This country has gotten weird. It's getting out of control. We want that pressure valve and release some of that pressure. In James chapter 1, verse 19, which is one of my favorite verses, it states, "Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." We need a lot of that thinking in this country, particularly with our political leaders and with our media outlets and influencers who have sway over the narrative in this country. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." That was Jesus speaking. And notice that he said peacemakers rather than peacekeepers, because making peace requires courage, not surrender. And Jesus was very courageous. And we need more courageous political leaders in this country and those with the influence and the money and the power to create a viable third party. If you could build a political party from scratch, a new party, what principles would you use to define it? Let me know in the comments. I'd be interested in reading that. America may need a viable third party because concentrated power of any kind eventually stops listening. Have you ever thought and felt like the folks you voted for and the folks we listen to on the news every day have stopped listening to what the American people want and what we voted for and what they promised us when we elected them? Competition can help with that. Competition's good. America thrives, and I dare say was built on competition. Just look at business and industry. We have laws against monopolies. Why don't we have these sort of antitrust things when it comes to political parties? Competition improves ideas. It keeps the power in check. It keeps people honest and humble. Wouldn't competition improve politics? The goal is not to replace another political party, another tribe with another one of the same mold. The goal is to give Americans another peaceful way to be heard before all this frustration turns into something far, far more dangerous, another civil war. I'm Dr. Hayes. This is Holy Sorta. Thanks for joining, and I hope to see you next time. Take care and be good.
A nation founded on faith. Now we're divided. We're not as holy as we used to be, but truth still rocks. Light still leads. This is Holy Sorta.